First, let me welcome you to the annual meeting of the American College of Sports Medicine and World Congresses held here in San Diego, California. Today, I have the good fortune of interviewing Dr. Karin Pfeiffer, professor at Michigan State University. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's begin with a little bit of background first. What first inspired you to enter the exercise science field?
Well, that's a good question. I think I wanted to initially be a physician when I went to college, and I was talking to some friends who were telling me about this class that they had that was a movement science class. And they said, I'm studying anatomy and studying exercise. And I was like, wait, what? You can do that? That's what I want to do. But I didn't actually know about kinesiology until a friend told me, and then, of course, took a class, and that's all she wrote.
And how did that lead you to then pursuing advanced degrees in exercise science?
Yeah, I think I didn't have a whole lot of direction in undergrad. I think I was just having fun and taking classes, and I didn't plan very well for what my next step might be, frankly. And I had gotten involved in some research my senior year and found out through that and through learning more about the research process that was something you could do and that graduate school was an option. So I decided pretty late in the game, spring semester, my senior year of college, that sounded like a good idea, and I wanted to continue doing that.
So out of all of my colleagues that I've been fortunate enough to meet, you might be the individual who've had the most past presidents of ACSM as mentors along the way. So the next question about mentorship. So who, as a undergraduate student or a student in itself, was an important person that played a role in your development? And then the second part of that is, as a professional, what mentors do you think have played a strong role in your development?
Yeah, I've had so many mentors. I'm not sure we had time to name them all today here, but in my undergraduate days, a woman by the name of Ann Garcia was a mentor to me. She's the one who really got me interested in research, and I was taking a sport and exercise psychology class from her, and she had done some work with children in physical activity, assessing their physical activity and looking at some of their psychosocial characteristics. And she needed my help determining energy expenditure from this survey that she had. And so that's how I got interested and involved. And then she involved me in subsequent presentations. And I learned a little bit more about the research process there. So she was instrumental in starting me on that path to thinking about graduate school. Now, once I got to graduate school, Jim Pavarnik was, of course, a super influential person for me. During my master's, I actually was exploring more psychosocial aspects, and so I had a couple really great mentors there with Marty Ewing and Crystal Branta really helped me through that time from my master's. But then I had already started doing some research with Jim, and so it was that experience, too, that led me to think, I could keep doing this and continue on to my Ph.D. And that's when I really started first presenting research at conferences. And I had attended some conferences, but hadn't really done much presenting until I got to my Ph.D. In the professional, Russ Pate is, certainly, I would say, my most influential mentor. But I have had so many professional mentors. I've had the very, very good fortune of meeting and knowing, you're right, a lot of past presidents in different ways and in different roles and different experiences I've had where I've been able to gain input from them.
Sure.
And I just feel really lucky that that mentorship came in different forms. So it came in service. For example, Mindy Millard-Stafford and Tom Best with the National Youth Sports Health and Safety Institute, learned a lot from them. That way, it's kind of amazing. I don't even know how to mention all of them and how I could ever thank them all for everything that they've contributed.
That's one of the great things about our field, I believe, is that we've got such great professionals willing to mentor and spend time to help the next generation of exercise physiologists and sports medicine individuals. So I believe you became a fellow 16 years ago in 2006. Could you share a little bit about how fellowship has been important for you in your professional development?
Sure. For me, personally, service is an important part of my life and of my career. And as you're aware, if you really want to serve our profession in the higher levels of ACSM, then fellowship is, of course, a very important first step to get to that point. And so for me, it opened up a lot of doors in my ability to participate more and engage in more service with the organization.
How challenging would you say it's been for you to navigate your career to where you are today?
I don't think it's been challenging at all. And I think, again, I'm a really lucky person, thank goodness. It's fun. What we do in our careers and getting to do the research that we get to do is what I love to do. And so I would say it's actually just been more fun than anything. There have been some kinds of challenges, right? But overall, I don't feel like I've had to overcome a lot of
Sure.
things.
Would it be fair to say is that as you're following your passion, it's fun?
That's right.
Fantastic. What advice would you have for a future professional who's trying to navigate that growth in the field based upon your experiences?
I think mentors are so important. And number one, rely on any mentors that you have. Number two, always be looking around and making those connections. You never know who's going to be a mentor to you at what point. And these relationships develop quite naturally. And you know, when I went to the University of South Carolina, I knew I was going to work with Russ Pate, but I knew Barb Ainsworth was there too. And so I tried to find ways that I could worm myself in and get to know Barb and have her influence me as well. And so just thinking about it and planning ahead a little bit of how you can take steps like that to gain that mentorship. I think for me, that's been the most important element.
This year, you were given the honor of delivering the Joseph B. Wolfe Lecture. Could you just share with us a little bit about what that meant for you?
That's a mic drop. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do now with the rest of my career. I still can't believe that I was asked, and I still can't believe I gave it. And it actually happened just yesterday. So that is just, it's incredible. You always envision when you're that student coming up and you think to yourself, wow, I wonder what it would be like to be that person or to give a talk like that. And now I know. And it's even more amazing than I thought.
So going along those lines, I believe you gave your first presentation just over 25 years ago at the Midwest Regional Chapter of the American College of Sports Medicine, titled Reliability and Validity of the Mini Logger for Assessing Energy Expenditure in Heart Rate in Adolescents. Can you speak a little bit about your public speaking journey from that presentation to the Wolfe Lecture?
So I probably should not have this on video, but I'm going to go ahead and admit to it anyway. We had a slight train wreck in my first presentation, and we got a little derailed there. Someone asked me a question when the presentation was over. So the presentation went fine, all good. And then I was always scared about the question part. And I think when you're a young investigator, that's always the scary part. Like, what if I can't answer the questions? What do I do? And so someone asked me a question, and it turned out to be a really easy question. But I could not imagine that someone was asking me that easy of a question. So instead of asking to clarify or doing any one of a number of things that would have been intelligent decisions, I decided to say, I don't know, I'm just the token reporter. And flippantly, of course. And that was not good. But then, as I stood there and thought for a minute, it sort of came to me and I said, oh, wait, are you asking this? And they said, yes. And then I answered the question. But yeah, that was not the move. So I don't do that anymore. That's pretty good. That's progress. But I think the lesson there is, the more you do it, the more you get used to it, the more teaching, presentations, all those things. You're not scared of the questions anymore after you, and in fact, then the questions are the fun part because you want to answer all the questions about everything, but it's just, so I think now it's just confidence, that's a big thing when you're just starting off and you don't really have that confidence factor. Sure. So thank goodness I found it.
And then going to the lecture, for the Wolf lecture, for me, sitting in the audience as a member listening, I thought it was fantastic how you broke down your lecture to a number of different professionals, right, with your A, B, C. That was fantastic. So as I was sitting there, I was like, wow, that is such fantastic, such a diverse, broad audience. You did your best to try and do that, so thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. It just has really struck me how we always talk about how important it is that ACSM has a diverse base of membership. And,
sure.
All of us do different work in different areas. And I think it's always important for us to at least try to think of something for everyone.
I believe you've done a tremendous amount of research with pediatric populations. Can you just share with us a little bit about that journey of how you got involved and maybe what you're doing now with it?
Yeah, I got involved because that was the work my mentors were doing, and it turned out A, I really like it, and B, I'm pretty much just a big kid anyway to this day. I always tell the joke that I don't really know much about adults aside from the fact that I'm supposed to be one in theory. So I enjoy the population. It's just where I got my start, and I've always enjoyed children. I've done babysitting, lots of things through my career where I've just enjoyed children. So for me, it was a natural fit. It started that way, and I just kept going.
And what would you say is the particular line of research with children that you've been focusing in on?
Well, it's really two lines, because there's the one where we're looking at how we measure physical activity, and so doing a lot with direct observation and some of the device-based work. But in addition to that, it's my real passion to try and get children to move. So the interventions to increase physical activity. And I have work going on in both areas right now.
Fantastic. What would you say are some of the accomplishments thus far in your career that you are most proud of?
Well, I have to say the Wolf lecture is kind of a big deal. So that's at the top of the list. Also, I'm really excited that I was, not just elected fellow here in ACSM, but of the National Academy of Kinesiology. I thought that was a pretty good honor as well. Fantastic. to be fellows in these organizations.
Sure. What are some of your most memorable moments from your service to ACSM?
I think that just recently has been some of the most memorable. It was so impressive how ACSM managed this pandemic. Our organization, we had Kristen coming in as our new CEO right before the COVID hit, and she's trying to navigate and figure out what's happening with our organization, and it's now in the middle of a pandemic. And to watch our volunteer leaders, who, all the presidents, everyone on the board, just everyone was able to weather the storm. And I think it was just really impressive to watch how everyone handled it, how Tim Calvert manages our budget and made sure we didn't fall into financial distress. Just watching everyone and all of their expertise, all the amazing ACSM staff, they just kept going. They just kept running with the ball, and it was very impressive. So I'd say I'm never going to forget that. I really learned a lot from watching that.
Sure. So being a Board of Trustee member yourself, what advice would you have for current and or future leaders of ACSM?
I'm not sure I have any advice for current leaders. They probably have advice for me. So anyone, who wants to be a leader in the future, I think remembering a few things is really important. One, what we already talked about with the diverse backgrounds of everyone in our organization. We always need to remember that there are going to be these different viewpoints and that there are going to be these different constituents, and we need to think about all of them. You can't only come from your own perspective. And I guess hand in hand with that comes the fact that I think ACSM has been a real leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm so proud of that, and I'm really invested in that, and that has helped me in my own career to try and bring it to other organizations, to try and bring it back to my home department. And so I think those things about ACSM are really important. And
I believe you're a mentor in the program now, is that correct?
Yes, yep. I've been a mentor a couple times.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I just have a new one again this year, so I'm excited.
That's great. So there are 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old students right now who will become the future leaders of ACSM, but they're trying to navigate their growth in their careers. What advice would you have for the 19, 20-year-old student who's looking like ACSM, exercise science, is a great field, but just not sure what to do or how to go about it?
Yeah, they need to seek opportunities. Opportunities, I think, are the most important thing. To me, what I tell students is, this is where you learn what you don't want to do. Eventually, you'll figure out what you do want to do. That comes down the road. But for now, in the early stages, it's figuring out, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. And that's okay. Don't do that. Learn it and find another thing. So I think the opportunities are really important. And if they're not getting opportunities for the things they're interested in doing, then they need to seek that out somehow. And they shouldn't be afraid if they see someone and they like the work that they're doing. This college is full of the nicest people, and no one's ever gonna be mean to you, if you come up and try to talk to people. And so if they have an interest, then they should come up and start talking to people. They never know what might come out of that.
Sure. Networking in this college, I think, is one of the strengths for me as a young professional growing up through the field.
Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Pfeiffer, I want to thank you today for taking some time today to sit down with us and chat and tell us a little bit about your background. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.